I do not put myself above talking about celebrities, but you may not be interested in society, but society is very interested in you. This is what people care about, therefore it has some importance. If we didn't live in democracies, it wouldn't matter. What people cared about would not have any impact on the rest of us, but ain't democracy grand? This is from the Federalist.com, Bill Cosby speech criminal by Bill McMorris. It seems leaving one's wife alone in a room with Bill Cosby is just as risky as sending one's kids to a sleepaway camp with Michael Jackson. It is almost as terrifying as leaving the law in the hands of a George H.W. Bush appointee. The only reason that we know Cosby admitted to procuring Quaaludes, a now banned prescription drug, for the purpose of having sex with a young woman is because Pennsylvania District Judge Eduardo C. Robredo overturned a previous judge's ruling that sealed the files. Now, despite the Hispanic name, and despite this man's Cuban heritage, he looks mostly white. I looked it up, and this will be of importance with regard to the point that I will make later. Robredo did not break the seal as a public warning to American women that a sexual predator was in their midst. He broke it because he didn't like a speech Cosby gave, blaming family and community breakdown for increased criminality and crass culture among black Americans. The stark contrast between Bill Cosby, the public moralist, and Bill Cosby, the subject of serious allegations concerning improper and perhaps criminal conduct, is a matter to which the AP and by extension the public has a significant interest, the judge said. Stark contrast is the operative phrase here. Cosby procured Quaaludes for the same reason that everyone in the 70s procured Quaaludes. One of the reasons the prescription drug is now illegal, although I know a few aging hippies who have some stashed away in safe deposit boxes to spice things up. The judge gives the impression that if Theo Huxtable had kept his trap shut or merely went with the conventional wisdom that cis white male privilege is responsible for the deterioration of the black community, he would have left the deposition private. The only sin is believing in sin. The Washington Post celebrated the means by which the judge unleashed the testimony, which reinforced the allegations against Cosby by more than 24 women. It was a stunning and deeply ironic chapter in the story of one of the more enduring and controversial utterances in the past 15 years by an African American about African Americans, and its reappearance in a legal matter so potentially detrimental to Cosby, who has decried the allegation against him as baseless, that may go down in history as a case study in the costs of hypocrisy, the Washington Post wrote. Hypocrisy has become a mortal sin in American life, even as we've abandoned the concept of sin itself. Be proud and forthright of your moral shortcomings: drug use, drinking, promiscuity, gambling. I'll go ahead and admit that I'm guilty of all four before a court gets a hold of the information, and our judgment-free press will revel along with you. If you condemn any sin or affirm any virtue that you fall short of, you will open yourself up to the charge of hypocrisy. Revealing hypocrisy has become the ideal of the American press. Liberals use this to their advantage. They don't have any moral scruples and thus can never be guilty of hypocrisy. I remember mentioning some time back that most of the left on the internet, the moderate left, quote unquote, takes issue with hypocrisy of the SJWs. And, not necessarily the conduct and beliefs that they hold, because really they're the same thing. They're the exact thing. You can make every comparison in the world except one doesn't take it so far. Apparently. Publicly. Anti-SJWs are pieces of shit. That's what I'm trying to say. But that doesn't have much to do with anything. That's just aside. The press is as hypocritical as its targets. A lover operated a brothel out of former Congressman Barney Frank's Washington, D.C. residence. They're just like you and me. And he remained in office for 3 more decades. Even after the story broke, editorial boards issued no clarion calls for his resignation. Not so the revelation that Jack Ryan, a millionaire philanthropist and the Republican standing between Barack Obama and a Senate seat, attempted to have sex with his ex-wife in a shady club. It ended his career. The message is clear. People who hold beliefs that differ from those of the Supreme Court or right-thinking members of society should think twice before stating them publicly. Ryan's downfall came after the Chicago Tribune, no doubt tipped off by its former reporter David Axelrod, fought tooth and nail to have his divorce records unsealed. As unfair as the ruling was to Ryan, at least he was a public figure seeking office. Judge Rebrano's reasoning for unsealing Cosby's records leaves all believers vulnerable. One need not have the stage, audience, and influence of Bill Cosby to run afoul of the whims of the Judge Rebranos of the world. The age of social media gives everyone a platform to publicly proclaim his or her values. This gives judges plenty of leeway to declare anyone espousing an opinion a public moralist. Sometimes regulators don't even need public statements to punish those who refuse to get on board with the new order. An Oregon regulatory judge placed a gag order on the Christian proprietors of a local bakery who refused to participate in a gay wedding. The official barred them from bearing witness to their faith or legal dilemma. It doesn't tax the imagination to picture what the newspaper leaks would have been like if this story had a tawdry court filing at his disposal. The message is clear. Believers and people who hold beliefs that differ from those of the Supreme Court or right-thinking members of society should think twice before stating them publicly. I think I just read that up top, but I'm in reader mode on my browser, so whatever. Editing error. One of Cosby's main points in the speech that landed him in so much trouble is the lack of community oversight and connectivity in black neighborhoods. In the neighborhood that most of us grew up in, parenting is not going on, Cosby said. In the old days, you couldn't hooky school because every drawn shade was an eye. Rebrano has made clear that we can no longer play hooky from modernism because every court, commenter, and regulator is an eye. This one won't blink in its quest to silence dissent. Bill McMorris is a staff writer. Oh, okay, that's over. White people are possessed by demons. Or they are possessed by semen. Either way. They are possessed by greed. They are possessed by lust. And this is why white people will no longer exist in however many years. Because everything that Bill Cosby has said is true. Black people, get off of welfare and take care of your kids, and things will improve dramatically. I don't think you can dispute that. But here's the problem in the eyes of those who work for the government, white liberals whose livelihoods depend on the fact that black people remain dysfunctional. If black people stop using EBT, the EBT office will have no employees. If black people actually stayed with the people they make children with and maintain their families, social workers, they're out of work. Easy jobs. Money for nothing. That's what white people care about. Sex for nothing. Sex without consequence. That is what white people care about. We'll cover that in the next story. The reason why this judge did this is because Bill Cosby, being a prominent public figure, an influential public figure, might have, possibly, in the realm of possibility, it might be that he has a sway over whether this man keeps his job. Whether people like him, government employees, keep their job. And beyond that, how many people have lives based around the fact that other people, like Bill Cosby was in the 70s, thought about nothing but ooga booga mo dick women, come. Because if you have kids and show loyalty to that which created your kids, that represents a threat to the prevailing order. And like the article I just read said, it is a greater sin in the eyes of society to make mistakes and acknowledge them as mistakes and said, that wasn't a good thing that I did. These things that I do, that's a mistake. It's a greater sin to acknowledge mistakes as just that, mistakes, than it is to actually make them. Age of moral inversion. Age of human experimentation. I don't think you can dispute that. No one has disputed that. They just rationalize it in a way that they can understand. They hand wave it away by saying that, oh, this guy believes in God, therefore he's wrong. By the way, we need to end this notion that religion needs to be oriented around a deity. Religion is what inflames the passions, what the average idiot puts all of their energy into. And the average idiot puts all their energy into wasting their reproductive capacity because they want to fuck asses or scissor or whatever. Shove a crucifix dildo up their ass and say, nothing's wrong with that because physics made me do it. And it's almost always white people or mestizos who are half white or more making this justification. So we're going to deal with this story now and draw a connection and spot the contradiction. It's pretty apparent. It's from HollywoodReporter.com. Bryan Singer sex abuse case, the troubling history behind the accusations, by Kim Masters and Jonathan Handel. The story first appeared in the May 9th issue of the Hollywood Reporter magazine. This was last year. Wild parties were hardly a secret. During the mid to late 1990s, as the internet bubble was inflating, a wide swath of gay Hollywood flocked to the 12,616 square foot Encino mansion that 40-something Mark Collins Rector shared with Chad Shackley, a Michigan man in his mid-20s who had lived with Collins Rector since dropping out of high school at 16. Oh, there's nothing wrong with a 16-year-old living with somebody twice his age. What, like you straight people don't do that? Give me a break. And Brock Pierce, a teenage actor who appeared in Disney's The Mighty Ducks movies. Anticipating that the day that programming would be delivered online, Collins Rector was an early internet mogul with money to spend, having changed his name from Mark Rector to Mark Collins Rector. He favored Armani suits and drove a Ferrari and Lamborghini. With his two younger associates, he founded Digital Entertainment Network, and heavyweights from former Warner Brothers chairman Terry Semel to former Congressman Michael Huffington, as well as Microsoft and Dell, wanted a piece of his company. Among the investors reportedly were A-list director Bryan Singer, veteran television executive Garth Ancier, and former Disney executive David Newman, who worked for Collins Rector's company, and producer Gary Goddard. Now, 15 years later, a man named Michael Egan III has filed civil suits accusing those four of misconduct that could supply material for an especially lurid episode of Law & Order SVU. Specifically, Egan alleges that Singer, Ancier, Newman, and Goddard drugged him and forced him into sex at parties in Encino and Hawaii starting when Egan was only 15. All have denied the allegations vehemently, with Singer calling them outrageous, vicious, and completely false. Singer denies he was in Hawaii at the time the alleged assaults occurred, and Ancier says he never so much as set foot on the estate in Hawaii. The alleged events in Hawaii are key to Egan's cases because of that state's favorable statute of limitations. It seems clear the defendants hope to get the cases dismissed by establishing they were not present when the alleged acts occurred. So far, no witnesses have come forward to corroborate Egan's accusations regarding any of the four, but the idea that underage boys were drugged and raped at the Encino estate and sometimes threatened with guns by Collins Rector is hardly new. Egan was one of several young men to make such allegations in lawsuits filed against Collins Rector, Shackley, and Pierce 14 years ago. Court cases in which the plaintiffs won $4.5 million from Collins Rector and Shackley by default because the trio had fled the country. Pierce reached a settlement. Egan and other plaintiffs also named several John Does, but did not include Singer or the others he now is accusing. His attorney has declined to explain why. By far the most high profile of the four defendants is Singer, 48, whose enviable career began with the 1995 breakthrough film The Usual Suspects, for which Kevin Spacey won his first Oscar, and has continued through the X-Men franchise. Singer is one of only a few A-list directors with a true fanboy following and a proven box office track record. The first two X-Men movies combined to gross more than $700 million worldwide. Now, thanks to unwanted attention brought by the Egan lawsuit, Singer has withdrawn from media events for X-Men Days of Future Past, set for release May 23rd, saying in a statement that he does not want to be a distraction. Singer long has been known to have an affinity for a certain type of man. Brian's always had a reputation of being with guys that look young, says a high-level studio executive who oversaw one of the director's big comic book movies. Whether they were underage or not, I have no idea, but for 20 years he's had young guys around him, whether they're assistants or friends. However they were described to you, they were always around. Where there's smoke, there's fire, everyone. But as several industry observers note, Singer is hardly the only Hollywood figure, gay or straight, with wealth, power, and an eye for pretty young things. Come on, that's a time-honored tradition in this town, says a producer long acquainted with Singer. He adds that the allegations are nearly impossible to believe, saying, "I've only seen a very gentle side of Brian." Oh, I bet. According to Singer's attorney, Martin Singer, no relation, his client consistently has been careful to avoid entanglements with underage partners. No, just only partners that look underage. Fucking. Anytime Brian has a party, he makes certain, and is very careful that there is a strict guest list, Martin Singer tells The Hollywood Reporter. He checks IDs, no minors are drinking, and there are off-duty cops as security. Lies. The more specific something is, the more it's likely to be a lie. Oh, he checks IDs. There are no minors drinking. Oh, I have off-duty cops as security. Yeah, even if that were true, that would deeply, deeply disturb me, that cops would be willing to work security at a standard fuck party. What is understandable is the stench that arose from the long-ago parties in Encino. In suits filed against Collins Rector, Shackley, and Pierce in 2000, Egan and several other men alleged they were sexually and physically abused, forced, through coercion or subversion, to consume controlled substances and or prescription drugs, and threatened with physical injury and economic harm. They cited a list of drugs allegedly pushed on them, including Valium, Vicodin, Xanax, Percocet, marijuana, hashish, ecstasy, and Rufinol, the date rape drug. Oh, but no Quaaludes because, yeah, that proves that we're superior to you breeder scum. We don't use Quaaludes. Bill Cosby did. By the way, I'm going to do an impromptu reading of the breeder scum and breeders tag on Tumblr after this. It is unclear exactly how Singer made first contact with Collins Rector, but many in Hollywood and beyond clamored to do business with his digital entertainment network. He made a big splash because he had lots of money and was willing to spend it, says a former DEN executive. He was also in the right place at the right time with the right idea. Companies with worse ideas were going to IPO left and right and generating enormous sums of money for investors. It seemed no one, including some who worked with him closely, quite knew where Collins Rector came from or his real age, but he had tech cred and money from a company called Concentric Research that he founded in 1991. Based in Bay City, Michigan, it allowed computer users to avoid long-distance charges when dialing electronic bulletin boards, precursors to online chat rooms. It was through such a bulletin board that Collins Rector befriended high school student Shackley, who dropped out to move in with Collins Rector and join his company. Still, Collins Rector continued to connect with boys on bulletin boards, including a 13-year-old from New Jersey, who later said he was hired in customer service at Concentric and flown by Collins Rector to Michigan and Florida. Customer service, I bet. In 1995, Collins Rector and Shackley made millions from selling a controlling interest in the company. 2 years later, they settled in the Encino house, which they bought for $2.5 million. DEN raised money and began to hire executives, compensating them lavishly. At 17, Pierce was making $250,000 a year. Newman left Disney to become DEN's president with a salary of $1.5 million. Gary Gersh and John Silva were brought in to start a record label, each making $600,000 a year. It was too early during the late 90s to deliver online entertainment to a global audience. Only about 2% of US households had high-speed internet, but investors swarmed to DEN, and at its height, the company had 300 employees and offices in Santa Monica, Marina del Rey, and West Los Angeles. DEN programming never amounted to much, but one especially personal pilot was entitled Chad's World, written by Collins Rector and produced by Pierce. Shot amateurishly at the Encino estate and featuring a young actor who later sued DEN, it tells the tale of a teen saved from his dreary world in Michigan by a gay couple who take him to live in their mansion. Other programming was eclectic and aimed at young demographic groups, including Christian youth. Sometime after making his 1998 film, Apt Pupil, Singer pitched a superhero project to DEN. There had been a burst of bad publicity during the making of Apt Pupil, a thriller about a high school student who discovers a fugitive Nazi war criminal in his neighborhood. During filming, suits were filed on behalf of underage extras alleging that Singer had required them to strip naked for hours while he shot a shower scene. Screenwriter Brandon Boyce called it an absolute smear job and an attempt to blackmail people based on their sexuality. Yeah, making people do gay shit for hours on end. But yeah, that's a smear of their sexuality. That's a blackmail based on their sexuality. I bet it is. Jesus Christ. These people think that, oh, I just do this stuff. I can't help it. How dare you judge me and get me in trouble for it? God. It's like the lack of self-awareness it borders on infantile. These people have like the brains of children, but the bodies of the worst sex perverts known to man. The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office found no evidence of wrongdoing, and the civil cases were dismissed. Singer at times has been known to be troubled. Executives who have worked on his movies say the director was sometimes erratic, often complaining he was in pain, at times appearing heavily medicated. Well, if you need to keep your HIV at bay, I suppose that's what you need to do. And sometimes failing to appear on set. But it seems only Singer's 2006 Warner Brothers film, Superman Returns, did these issues contribute to budget overages. There were widespread rumors that Singer's partying was part of the problem, but a friend who visited the set says that was not the issue. There were times that production was interrupted or delayed, says this person, but the problem was Singer battling his own demons with respect to medication. Attorney Singer says his client had back pain and neck surgery, which explains him seeming medicated. He took medication for back pain. From what? Chris Lee, a former top Columbia TriStar executive who had overseen Apt Pupil, had a reputation for being able to soothe Singer, was an executive producer on Superman Returns, and was dispatched to the set in Australia to get the director on track. Chris wasn't able to do with Brian what we'd thought he'd be able to do, says an executive involved with the film. We needed someone who would be able to control and guide Brian a little better. Lee, recently appointed to a major new job as the president of China Rails Media Group, soon to be renamed China National Culture Group, could not be reached for comment. Singer's pitch to DEN went nowhere, but by then he was already on to the first X-Men, in which his friend Goddard is credited as Man at Beach. Meanwhile, Den also appeared on the rise, DEN. By June 1999, the company was positioning itself to go public, but within a few short months, all thoughts of an IPO were in the past. In May 1999, the boy from New Jersey, who had met Collins Rector at 13, had sued in federal court in New Jersey, alleging that Collins Rector sexually abused him from 1993 to 96. Denying the allegations, Collins Rector settled for an undisclosed sum, arguing through his attorney that he was paying only because he wanted to avoid controversy before the IPO. But he left DEN along with Shackley and Pierce, stating through their attorney that they had planned to go regardless of the lawsuit. The company's new chairman denied that, saying the allegations in the suit were inconsistent with a company aimed at 14 to 24-year-olds. Attorney Ronald Palmieri, representing the DEN trio, said nothing improper went on at the Encino house. Top DEN executives, including Newman, subsequently told the Los Angeles Times in 2000 that they knew of no abuse by Collins Rector and did not concern themselves with his private life. Soon DEN went bankrupt. Well, if you did concern yourself with his private life, you would say, moving a 13-year-old boy out here and luring him and giving him treats and candy and roofies, it's probably a bad idea. Or who knew, maybe they wanted to partake in it themselves, but liked money more than they liked boy ass. Collins Rector, Shackley, and Pierce launched another company called Worldwide Technology and Internet Ventures Limited, incorporated in the British Virgin Islands. Still living at the Encino mansion, they were joined by new housemate and partner Alex Burton, an 18-year-old actor who was a friend of Pierce. But more and more boys came forward, alleging abuse. In 2000, Egan and other plaintiffs sued the three DEN principals as well as their company and other John Doe defendants. According to a harrowing account in the now-defunct Radar magazine, a plaintiff named Mike E. claimed he was sexually assaulted by Collins Rector, Shackley, and Pierce while under the influence of drugs given to him without his knowledge. The account adds that another alleged victim, Daniel, was said to have written a suicide note reading in part, "I can't go on. I let them use me as a sex tool." The note was discovered before a suicide attempt could be made. Another alleged victim was said to have made similar allegations and shot a video to document the house's copious drug supply, a bag filled with Percocet, Vicodin, Xanax, Valium, marijuana, and ecstasy. There were also accusations that Collins Rector would intimidate his victims by brandishing a gun. "Do you know what I can do with this?" he would say, leveling the barrel at them, "and get away with it?" After a New Jersey grand jury indicted Collins Rector in 2000, he fled the country along with Shackley and Pierce. That sounds like something innocent people would do. The trio surfaced in May 2002 in a villa in the South Spanish beach city of Marbella. Police found guns, machetes, and child pornography in the house, but they didn't do anything wrong. This is just rumor and hearsay. Pierce and Shackley were held for about a month, then released. Collins Rector spent a couple of years in jail in Spain, resisting extradition. In 2004, he was returned to the U.S. He struck a plea bargain and spent brief additional time in prison. He emerged as a registered sex offender under weekly supervision. In 2006, he was granted emergency permission to leave the country to be treated for a brain tumor. Collins Rector relocated to London, where in October 2007 the British paper The Sun ran a photograph of him in a tan blazer leaning on a cane, accompanied by a young man. A millionaire pedophile from America is swanning around Britain in a chauffeur-driven limo and surrounding himself with young boys, the article reported. Wow, it's 2007. I can't believe this homophobia still exists. In 2007, his attorney filed a request to terminate his supervision, writing that life-changing medical events he has experienced have profoundly affected him and augur well for the success of his rehabilitation. The U.S. Attorney's Office responded that Collins Rector was attempting to circumvent British immigration law by forming a civil union with his assistant, who had just turned 18. His last known whereabouts are from 2008, when Florida authorities had him residing in the Dominican Republic. The Hollywood Reporter's efforts to locate him were unsuccessful, as were efforts to reach Pierce and Shackley. In Radar's 2008 article about DEN, its investigation suggested Pierce was fronting for Collins Rector through a Hong Kong-based company, Internet Gaming Entertainment, that sold broadswords, battle axes, and other assets to fans of such online games as EverQuest and World of Warcraft. The company initially listed an address in Marbella and papers for incorporation in the U.S. were filed by Collins Rector's brother, as well as a former business partner, attorney Randy Maslow, a VP at the gaming company. Attempts to reach Maslow and IGE were unsuccessful. Pierce's most recent bio says he is co-founder of GoCoin, ExpressCoin, KNCMiner.cn, and RoboCoin Asia. He is described as a sought-after commentator on the Bitcoin economy and a prolific angel investor who has raised more than $200 million on behalf of his companies and led more than 30 acquisitions during his career. What seems remarkable in retrospect is that all of the charges against Pierce's former partner, Collins Rector, were filed by federal authorities, despite many allegations regarding activities at the Encino House. Officials in LA never pursued criminal charges against Collins Rector or his associates. Egan's mother, Bonnie Mound, alleged during an April 21st news conference that her attempts to report her son's abuse to the FBI had fallen on deaf ears. Big shock. In fact, a 2003 affidavit filed by Special Agent Joseph Brine and obtained by TMZ stated that Egan had brought allegations against Collins Rector to Brine's attention. During the April 21st news conference, Egan's sobbing mother called out several FBI officials by name. "I'd like to say to Special Agent Joseph Brine, you came to our house once. You interviewed Mike once. You called me a couple times after. I continued to call you. I continued to write certified return receipt letters to you. Everything went silent. What did you do then, Mr. Brine? I'd also like to say to Mr. J. Stephen Tidwell, FBI Los Angeles, why do you ignore my certified return receipt letters? Mr. David Johnson, FBI, J. Edgar Hoover Building, Washington, D.C. Why did you ignore my certified return receipt letters? And Mr. Robert Mueller III, Director of FBI, J. Edgar Hoover Building, Washington, D.C. Why did you ignore my certified return receipt letters? In response to an inquiry from The Hollywood Reporter, the FBI said it takes seriously allegations involving the sexual abuse of minors. The suggestion that the FBI ignored evidence concerning the sexual victimization of a minor is completely without merit. The Los Angeles Police Department said the FBI was the lead agency investigating in 2000, but declined further comment. So far, attorneys for Singer and the other defendants say their clients have not been served with the lawsuits against them. Attorney Singer suggested that Egan's attorney, Jeff Herman, is not looking to litigate the case on its merits, but rather seeking to get his 15 minutes of fame by sending out a press release. In his statement, Bryan Singer said ultimately the facts will show this to be the sick, twisted shakedown it is. But Herman says he is in the process of serving the defendants, and he's threatened more suits. It's not a shakedown, he says. My client wants to protect kids in the future and expose what's going on. He didn't want to resolve this by settling. He wanted to bring light to what's going on and bring this in a public forum. What Bryan Singer should have said, this is a sick, twisted shakedown. They enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. We all enjoyed it. We were all consenting. Given that's what the average person uses to justify every shitty decision they make. My consent. Consenting adults. But adulthood's a social construct. So consent. Because consent isn't a social construct. So, what's the difference between these freaks and Bill Cosby? Well, Bill Cosby is a black heterosexual. These men, white homosexuals, and who sits at the top of the social hierarchy? You can say all the bad shit you want about heterosexuals. You can say all the bad shit you want about white people. And if they have the wrong opinions, you can say all the bad shit you want about black people. Hell, you can even criticize Jews as long as you're criticizing Israel in the right way for the right reasons. But the one group of people you're not allowed to criticize are your Bryan Singers of the world, or your Collins Rectors of the world. All of this hand-wringing on Twitter and other social media outlets about Bill Cosby, but nothing about Bryan Singer. There might be a chance that I get kidnapped by a Hollywood rape van for reminding people of this story, and you might be kidnapped by one too for simply listening to it. So just be prepared for that. And the legions of unrepentant sex perverts with their rainbow filters over their Facebook profile pictures will cheerlead this. Good, I'm glad that bigot got what he deserved. If you deny gay sex to a gay person, you're a bigot. You're a homophobic bigot. This is something that I've seen people argue before. That if you deny a blowjob from a man, that you're homophobic. I saw that being posted legitimately, without a trace of irony, on a forum once upon a time. It's the kind of people you're dealing with. Average people who lead average lives, seemingly, who make average incomes working average jobs. This is what they believe. Because God is dead and God isn't real and morality is a social construct, but people for some reason still take moral objection to the things I say. European civilization is diseased. Our sense of priority is completely fucked up. And can it be saved? Has any attempt been made to save it? To restore our sense of priority? Prioritize rainbow filters over Facebook profile pictures. That's what we prioritize, because civilization would cease to exist if, we didn't express our highest devotion to ass sex, to egg disposal, to compulsory egg disposal. Oh yeah, people being homophobic, that's what shuts down civilization. That's what keeps water from running. That's what keeps the lights from staying on. Like I said, priorities. Where are they? Our priority is to defend people who throw bitch fits at those bigoted breeder scum dare object to the fact that they have to stand around naked for hours for some dumb movie, for some gay director getting his jollies. So let's go breeder scum on Tumblr. Hashtag breeder scum. And I think I looked at this and there was one post in particular. It's not a very long one, which we're going to go with breeders next. Alright, here we go. This is from some woman who describes herself as a queer fat Seattleite with a love for milkshakes, horror movies, Jane Austen, and burn it all to the fucking ground feminism. What a ray of sunshine. So she says, I hate it when. This is, again, hashtag breeder scum on tumblr.com. She says, I hate it when straight couples feel like they can hold hands and walk next to each other on the sidewalk, and make my girlfriend and I walk single file on the street to make way for them. Hashtag queer, hashtag gay, hashtag breeder scum. What a nice person. Boo-hoo. Temporary inconvenience. Okay, now we're going to go with hashtag breeders. Happy Father's Day. With some naked dudes doing terrible things to each other. Family breeders. We want incest family marriage equality. But they aren't committing any crimes. I'm committing crimes for objecting to this. Some stuff about dog breeders. Again, I'm sure that many of these dog breeders engage in some odd practices, some bad practices, but again, priorities. The straight girl just said to me, I'm totally accepting of the gays. Like, I loved Rocky Horror. Hashtag I cannot. Hashtag breeders. See what this blog. Oh, it's just some dumb quote. Some dumb, oh, look at this. Some guy getting his nipples squeezed in a locker room. Join and follow chainstraightmail.tumblr.com. What did I say about, Hollywood rape vans going around kidnapping people who dare oppose their agenda?
We don't have an agenda. Our agenda is equality.
Yeah, I'm sure you would like to lower me to your standards, you animal fuck. and some big black cock propaganda. Send your daughter to fight, defend, and breed for her country. Lovely. BBC brainwashing for business purposes. What the fuck is wrong with people? What the fuck is wrong with people? What's right with them? More people complaining about cats and dog breeders. Oh, here's a cute little one here. Very charming. Giving birth is as mystical as passing a turd through your colon.
Nothing miraculous about having a baby.
There you go, everyone. These people view the miracle of birth as the same thing as passing a bowel movement. Do you not get how unlikely it is for you to exist? You listening to this. These people who post this, how unlikely it is for them to exist. How many millions of sperm are released in an ejaculation? And what is the likelihood that you won that race? That you were the first one inside that egg? It's lost on these people because they're so fucking far removed from what makes life and what causes death. What perpetuates life and what perpetuates death. This is what skews your sense of priority towards something completely fucking stupid or destructive. Because, at least with these people complaining about dog and cat breeders, their sense of priorities, it's stupid, but you know what? Fine. It's a hell of a lot less destructive than comparing birth to shitting. How is this any different from you being a 5-year-old and saying, ew, cuties? No different. Oh, here's a good one. So I just read a headline saying this is how much breeders are willing to pay for horse semen, and I did not immediately make the connection to horse breeders. No, I thought, what kind of fucked up trend have these fellow straights started now? And this is one of those pig-nosed people. Kathy, 20, cis woman, she, her pronouns. English is my second language. There you go. Those straight people starting something fucked up. But comparing birth to a bowel movement, no, that's completely right. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, according to these people, there's nothing wrong with luring 13-year-old boys on the internet. As long as you know. It's homo, no hetero. What else? Just scrolling through here, seeing what else will scar me permanently. How about this one? It's a screenshot of a news story from Fox News' Facebook page. The good Lord has just kept sending them. After 59 years of marriage, Leo and Ruth Zanger have 12 children, 53 grandchildren, 46 great-grandchildren, and 1 great-great-grandchild. We could start our own town. Couple celebrates birth of 100th grandchild. That is incredibly impressive. But this idiot says, straight people honestly amaze me. Yeah, fuck those straight people. Fuck them for ensuring a strong genetic legacy and through that ensuring that the gears of civilization keep turning. Yeah, fuck them. They should breed boy pussies instead. Yeah, breed me up. Pause me up. That's what they should do. They should breed diseases and dysfunction. Because global warming or some shit. By the way, the last thing we want it to do is get colder. Fucking morons. Everyone is just a tremendous piece of shit. And there's no way to get around this. You want more proof? Okay. Wallingford police called after Nazi Confederate merchandise found at flea market. Wallingford, Connecticut. Over the weekend, Wallingford police were dispatched after someone called them to say there was a merchant selling Nazi and Confederate memorabilia at flea market, which some had found deeply offensive. Yeah, go figure that this is in Connecticut. What the fuck is wrong with the Northwest and the Northeast? It's like the worst fucking weakest white people you could possibly imagine. The police chief says no one was arrested because no laws were broken. Yet, the items were being sold on private property. It's not clear if the items that were being sold were authentic, but they're easy to find in Connecticut. Military Specialties Incorporated in Newington sells a variety of historical military objects, including those produced by the Third Reich and Confederate reproductions. Oh, if they're authentic, that means they're evil. It's okay if they're replicas, though. Quote, it's here and you're likely to see it, unquote, said co-owner William Moore. Quote, if you want, we'll talk to you about it and give you the history about it, unquote. Moore says he supports the caller who dialed up police and is sympathetic to what they felt. As a dealer of commodities with a controversial past, he can see both sides. Go fuck yourself. How about this one? I bet you this person was a woman, because I'm about to read you this. A Safety Harbor woman was arrested for hitting her husband because he wouldn't take down the Confederate flag, according to deputies. Deputies say Margaret Ray Carpenter and her husband Larry were arguing over the Confederate flag Larry had put up Saturday afternoon. According to the arrest affidavit, she kept asking him to take down the flag, and he refused. Deputies said the fight turned physical when Peggy, who was wearing 2 bracelets at the time, struck Harry in the arm, causing him to bleed. The 60-year-old was charged with domestic battery. The junkyard dogs of conformity. Extreme conformists, or conformity extremists, these women are. And look what they defend, look what they conform to. They conform to the ideals of trashing your heritage, conforming to the ideals of anal sex because they think that's how you connect with people, is by letting them anally violate you. Therefore, same love. Okay, I've had enough. Let's do questions. And I'll do Ask FM questions first because I've neglected this for the past 2 weeks or so. So, what's your favorite Screwdriver song? Anything off of Hail the New Dawn. It's a great album. What's your opinion on circumcision? I'm against it, and I really have nothing more to say about it. Both male and female. Hey, Common Filth, fedora-clad boys are usually running around saying that they should be noticed and otherwise dated because they're nice guys, as compared to the guys who the girls usually date. What do you think of the nice guy phenomenon that seems to exist these days? I don't think that them being nice or not nice is the issue. The issue is that they're fucking dorks, and they need to stop being dorks. Honestly, it's like, you hear a lot about these guys complaining about your Chad Thundercocks or whatever, but I don't know, I've known people who might fit that definition, and they never struck me as bad people, as mean people. But I guess having some modicum of social skills, that makes you a jerk. How'd that Chris Chan song go? Why do all the jerks get all the pretty girls? It goes something like that, but yeah, they need to stop being dorks. They need to stop being disgusting. They need to dress like regular human beings and learn how to relate to people. Okay, next up. Predict America's next war and military fuck-up, assuming that a difference exists between the two. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea. I don't know. You would think that it would be Iran because it's in the Middle East, but I don't think that Iran represents much of a threat, despite the hand-wringing from the you-know-whos. I think that it's more likely to be Russia or China. North Korea is a non-entity, so I'm not really concerned about them. But Russia and China, they're the only ones that could compete on a power level. Haha. How many Jews can a Jew Jew if a Jew could Jew Jews? I cannot solve this riddle. I really can't. If you met a girl who's basically perfect and later found out she's Ashkenazi, would that be a deal breaker? It would be on her end. I mean, I don't take any effort to hide the things I believe in front of the people I'm closest to, so I think that it would have to be a deal breaker because oy vey, how dare you, etc., etc. Or maybe she'd be like some weird submissive type who has a Nazi fetish. And no, I'm not a Nazi, for fuck's sake. And I know the SPLC is listening to this, taking notes. He says he's a Nazi. Let's see. ACF, 2 questions. Aside from the internet, do you have to regularly put up with these fucking SJW types in your normal life? Also, you said that you're a white nationalist. What is your opinion on the Northwest Front? Thanks and keep doing God's work. I don't have to put up regularly with SJW types in my daily life, even though once upon a time I did, and I removed myself from that situation. And other than that, I've had really good luck. I've avoided being in the company of these types of people who will ruin your life because of the things you believe, the things you value. And I'm a white nationalist just out of principle, but I'm not like a capital W, capital N white nationalist. But the Northwest Front, I don't really know too much about, other than they want to have a homeland for white people in Cascadia. But the problem with that is, if you look up a map of the presidential election, the 2012 presidential election, if you look at the map state by state, if you just counted voters who were white males, it's overwhelmingly in favor of the Republicans pretty much everywhere except for the Pacific Northwest and the Northeast. So I don't think that you can have a homeland for white people if the men in it are white liberal morons, white liberal pussies. So I think that in order for this to have any success, it needs to be somewhere else other than the Pacific Northwest. All right, time for Reddit questions. From DeathWave88, if you became dictator for life in the United States, there is no possibility of an effective rebellion, what kinds of policies would you implement? I would put most active duty military along the southern border and make English the official language. I think those are the 2 biggest things, because if you don't have borders and you don't have a language, you have no nation. And that's what we have here in America. We're not a nation. We're a collection of rootless individuals left to our own devices, so that we care about the stupidest shit, like the stuff we just talked about earlier in this show. And, well, they have tasty food. Boy, I love these cheap ethnic restaurants. Let me tell you something. If that's all your culture has is tasty food, silly hats, and funny dances, it's not much of a culture. Culture is how people relate to one another. And I would hope that the people that I belong to, I would hope that they relate to people, the things around them, how they relate to each other in a more significant way than just food, dancing, music. Notice how the only people who say that, oh, X people don't have culture, white people don't have culture, are the people that have the most basic tastes, have tastes that only stimulate their animal brains. That's what culture is to people. They think that what blasts their animal brain and animal senses with the most amount of anything possible, the most amount of volume, the most amount of flavor, the most amount of colors, because they can't comprehend anything else other than the loud, crass, brazen, whatever. But you can't convince anyone of this, because life to them is about getting the highest score possible. They think that life is about having the most amount of fun. So, labor camps for them. That's another policy that I would implement. Next, from Schwartz Zone. What are your thoughts on LARPy or super edgy music like Nazi metal and rock along the lines of Lanzer, or neofolk like Von Thronsdal? On a more serious note, in some of the communities I frequent, there is discussion of essentially going paleo neat, dropping off the grid to go curl up in a monastery or cabin in the woods. What do you think of such prospects? Well, I wouldn't really recommend living in a cabin in the woods on your own, even though you might be forced to learn some valuable skills, but joining a monastery isn't such a bad idea. And as for super light or edgy music, I really don't listen to any of it, so it's not like I have anything against it, just I have no opinion on it. So, thank you for the question. This is from Timic83. A few episodes ago, you told us you took a selfie to prove to Facebook that you were a real person. Did I say that? I don't remember. What it was, actually, was that I had to correctly identify, people on my friends list, and then a sock account, they wanted an ID, and I wasn't willing to give that to them. Okay, what do you think about the growing number of sites that require you to use Facebook or Google Plus to log in, or even tie a mobile number to your account? On one hand, it stops bots, but the incentives that sites give you for tying a Facebook account to your site account make me think something is happening behind the scenes with adding you to a database. Yeah, but people take the path of least resistance, so I think that's what people are willing to do, and if people weren't willing to do it, websites would not offer that as an option. So, I mean, the phone number thing, that doesn't bother me so much as it does, like, ID, a driver's license. That's what cops do to you. They run your license, and I don't think that we should be giving police powers to websites. But phone numbers, that doesn't bother me so much because you can buy SIM cards and just use those. Use disposable SIM cards. Where was I? Oh, here we go. Even 4chan now has a CAPTCHA that will tell every page you browse to Google. After installing the Firefox extensions, NoScript, and Request Policy, I see that many sites have hidden trackers from Google and Facebook telling them what sites you visit. Even my local Australian public transport planner site has scripts running from an Israeli web statistics company. That's a little weird. I notice on YouTube, I will only see recommended videos and comments that fit my worldview, and see friends have completely different recommended videos and top comments, usually more left-leaning. It seems that these sites are trying to put people into separate political compass groups and keep the goyim from actually interacting with each other and red-blue-pilling the other side. To quote Metal Gear Solid 2, everyone withdraws into their own small, gated community, afraid of a larger form. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truths suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large. The different truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but no one is right. It seems that these big sites are purposely trying to make groups withdraw into their own communities. Divide and conquer, keep groups fighting each other. So when will the day come when Google will tell local authorities about these problematic users, especially in countries like mine, Australia, which don't have free speech laws and you can go to jail for saying racist things? When will the US join us in the destruction of the First Amendment? Who will take over the world, Google, Microsoft, or Facebook? Or are they all already working together? Are these computer algorithms that keep us apart simply trying to cater to individual interests? Or is there something more sinister happening? Why are there so many on the internet keen to stop anonymity? Thanks for answering my large amount of questions. Keeping the show keeps me sane. Well, thank you. Well, I think in the US you can combat the tech industry wanting to dox people, for lack of a better term, by being upfront with your beliefs. And that's what I've done. And many people have decided to cut off contact with me because of it. But you know what? I'm okay with that. Because what good is life if you can't be honest? But unfortunately, honesty is bad for the bottom line. Honesty is bad when you're trying to make money. And that's what corporations are doing. They want to make everybody dishonest. And therefore make everybody into these moldable consumers who will buy into any bullshit that they push. And that's the foundation of marketing. Lying, telling half-truths. And people like marketing because it entertains them. It makes them think, gee, if I had this product, I could have a life like that's in the commercial. Notice how commercials never actually sell the product that they're advertising. They always orient something else around the product. It's not the product itself that's the focus, it's the life. People want to lead this sort of life, and oh look, they have a phone, therefore that's what creates this life that they're selling that people want. Notice that you could look at in old advertisements that it generally just deals with the product itself. Commercials and advertisements at large usually just sold whatever it was they were selling. They didn't bother putting sappy piano music and a sentimental voiceover over it. I don't know which one of these companies is going to take over. I mean, it'll all be in a tandem with one another. I'm pretty sure that every copy of Windows, every copy of whatever Mac OS is the current one, and previous ones have all sorts of backdoors in it that broadcast you masturbating in front of your computer through your webcam. But yeah, scary times we're living in, but you can fight back against it by simply being honest. And this is from Video Game Massa. Although again, there are a good amount of questions for now. Side note, your 2 videos of Tumblristas were great. It's sickening when they say that true love is when you give people the gift, and it pisses me off when they say shit like, why are people straight? Yeah, me too. Excuse me. 1, are you going to make a Vine Marathon Volume 4? I've checked some of that shit on Vine, and one of them was about a girl who bitched about gay marriage is still not legal in Louisiana, and others about their thoughts on gay marriage. I actually saw the one that you're talking about. I've been collecting every couple of days for Marathon Volume 4, so yes, it is happening. And basically that girl's complaint was that it was like a 3-week waiting period that they put these issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples that want to play house. State law so oppressive, making people wait to in case that there's an overturning of the ruling from a higher court. And it creeped me out because it's like, love wins, but... And all these other people who were just repeating this love wins thing as if straight people getting married, actually a man and a woman getting married, what marriage actually is, love doesn't win there. So give me a fucking break. But people will use anything to justify love, which is why it's a poisonous concept. It's like Goldman Sachs Paper Redemption said when I was reading that post that he made. Love is telling people the truth. Love is not enabling their pathological behavior. So what we consider love is actually hate. And what we consider hate is actually love. I don't say that we live in an age of moral inversion for no reason. Number 2, if you were the president, have power over removing mayors in universities, colleges, which mayors would you get rid of and for what purposes? I think we call those deans for deans, presidents of universities and colleges. I would actually get rid of all of them. I would make it so that what is taught in universities is very, very tightly controlled. I would ban humanities from being taught completely. And people be like, my job. Well, maybe you should have learned an actual skill that actually has real world implications other than spreading propaganda, telling students what opinions to have. That's what your job ultimately amounts to. That's what humanities professors, what their jobs ultimately amount. Number 3, considering that the amount of people who are not straight are growing and that there's propaganda being gay or trans, how much of a lifetime will non-heteronormative society struggle before it crumbles, and what kind of shit are they going to face? I don't know. I mean, at some point, we're going to have to fight back, and that's all I'll really say about it. Because, as the Ultimate Warrior said, queering does not make the world work. You cannot get around this fact. It takes these very unnatural, artificial constructs to prop up an all-gay society. In theory, you would need sperm banks, you need egg banks, and that's just completely impractical. On a small scale, fertility clinics, fine, okay, but generally, if you're having a hard time conceiving, you probably shouldn't be conceiving in the first place. But I'm old-fashioned and bigoted, so whatever. Next, about that other question about Tex Mars in the video about gay Israel, what are your thoughts? Now, assuming that you've watched it, I have watched it, and I thought it was all very disturbing, but none of it's particularly surprising, especially the part about how these homosexuals see themselves as gods, as greater beings. And it's really not that surprising given how entitled they behave, like the Bryan Singer story about how he's like, how dare you take objection to me making you sit around for hours in the nude? You bigoted breeder scum. You know, I've already said that, but that's just proof that these people do see themselves as above everybody. And maybe not all of them, but I don't have to say not all X are like that, because not all anything is like that one thing. It's a given. There are exceptions to everything, but let's not focus on the exceptions. That's what I'm getting at here. That's what I say all the time. Number 5, considering that there's a growing number of people who are streaming stuff, let's plays, random humor, vlogging, and that kind of shit, although some of them are doing it while they're doing a productive job. If this trend grows to the point where the majority of people are doing this to the point of abandoning productive jobs, although doing internet entertainment tends to give less money because of saturation, how long will it take before the society crumbles, and what are people going to do about it? I don't think it'll get to that point. We've always had entertainers. I mean, for the last, I don't know, however many years, we've had television for a long time now. And it's not like the majority of people are working in television. Entertainment, it fills free time. And I think that people will start having less free time before it gets to that point where there's so much entertainment, society collapses. I think that small little collapses will happen, which will lead people to have less free time, which will then take away the amount of money that people make through entertainment. And number 6, your opinion on Patreon, the people who use it, and shit that you're interested in Patreon if there's something you like in it, of course. Bandcamp is the stand-in for Patreon. I don't really have anything to offer on Patreon that I wouldn't offer on Bandcamp. The reason why I have the Bandcamp is to offer exclusive content for people who want to support what I do, if they want to financially support me. So and Bandcamp actually has like a Patreon sort of thing going on right now where you can actually offer a monthly subscription. So that might be something I look into, but I'd rather have a back catalog of stuff before I jump into it, because I would want to have something additional to offer subscribers. But I think that's a little bit of ways away at this point. So thanks for the questions. This is from ICA Reviews, or Eco Reviews. I don't know how to pronounce these things. In episode 46, you speak about the literally lofty significance of flags. If you could live under any flag, not necessarily that of a nation or country, which flag best represents you? What do you think of the unequal sign as a cultural symbol and rallying point? I like it and find that it sums up or distills what little unites the various strands of what might be termed the alternative right. I've seen a few people use it as an avatar, and I always enjoy the frankness and unapologetic quality of it. An unequal sign has a spare, Spartan quality of a rune, and also abstractly suggests the cross, so it might serve as an acknowledgement of the Christian heritage of the West, while also referencing racial science. With what I consider flags to be in mind, an unequal sign would be a bit redundant, but for the reasons you suggested, I'm convinced that that would be the flag I'd like to live under. It could be twisted to say that to represent, oh, this means you're unequal to you bigoted breeder scum, you are unequal to us superior homosexuals, which I guess is what the rainbow flag represents, but yeah, it's something I'd like to live under. And the flag that the Russians made of the man, woman, child, family as an answer to the gay pride flag, I thought that was a really good flag. Okay, next up. Greasy Comb says, I'm homo, don't want to be. What do? Go celibate. And I mean this with the utmost sincerity, because a lot of people would say, date girls, learn to like girls, but I don't think that any girl should live with the fact that their man secretly craves cock or man ass for whatever reason, whether it's born this way or just some weird thing that happened to them that lead them to develop in this way, to want to have their reproductive energies expended towards something that cannot end in reproduction. Because what has been defiled cannot become otherwise. You cannot undo what others have done to your body, what you do to others' bodies. And that's just, I don't think that's something any woman should live with. I've already said it, whatever. So, yeah, celibacy, that's my recommendation. And this is Two Girls, One Meme. I live in Germany, and the media is currently in full-on cuckold mode, praising mayors who replace their cities' populations with refugees and revving up the white guilt machine every time a refugee gets stabbed or a refugee home is burned down. When it then turns out that it was another refugee all along, the media shames the people who suspected it all along for being racist. Well, of course, because I have to make the narrative fit somehow. We aren't dealing with facts here. We in white America, in European civilization in general, are not concerned with the facts. We are not concerned with the truth. We are concerned with the narrative and spinning every event to fit this narrative. And when the facts somehow do fit the narrative, on the rare occasion that it does, everybody flips the fuck out. Continuing with your question, some top politicians openly embrace the eradication of the German people, and every party represented in the parliament wants the German state to stop existing and have a big democratic People's Republic of Europe instead. All of this may sound exaggerated, but it isn't. This country is doomed to be a black caliphate in 50 years. Do you think one should escape to rural Finland or Aldebaran to escape the cuckening? Or should one defend their home country, even if the situation is hopeless? Thank you for your show. I really love your calm voice. No homo. Well, no homo taken. Some time ago, I did a show, and I read a screenshot that I took from 8chan's poll, and it was a Swede who basically felt betrayed by his country and was asking almost the same thing. He said, I have a job opportunity somewhere in Finland, and basically asking whether he should stay or if he should go, and it depends. It depends on what you think you should do. It depends on what you think you are capable of. It depends on what you are capable of. But my policy is this. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You can only be loyal to that which is loyal to you. Certainly you should extend your loyalty to people initially and then withdraw it when they show themselves to be disloyal. But you can't be loyal to people who do not return the favor. So if I were in your situation, I'd escape. I'd take the first escape route that came my way. So ask yourself these questions. Is there anything that I can do? Is there anything I can do effectively? Is there anything I can do that won't end me up in jail with the refugees? Just kidding. They probably don't put refugees in jail, given the situation that you described. And you would know better than I would. You are more part of the culture than I am. You have an front row view of the destruction that is taking place. But best of luck to you. Comclash asks, you've mentioned in the past that Pat Buchanan has been an influence on your thinking. How different do you think the United States would be today if Pat Buchanan had been elected to the presidency? Thanks again for all the content. I can't say for sure because I'm skeptical as to how much power the U.S. president actually holds. And this might seem conspiratorial, but I think that they are subject to powers greater than themselves. I mean, don't you find it odd that no president ever has attempted to build a border fence? At least as far as I know. No president attempted to build a border fence. No president ever made English the official language. So maybe it's always been in the plans. Maybe it's always been in the playbook that the powers that be written, that America will always be this rootless cosmopolitan nation, where there are no borders and there is no language. So really, I don't know. I don't know if Pat Buchanan would have been able to actually accomplish anything. It seems destined that America is the world's genetic toilet, and will remain the world's genetic toilet. Unfortunate as it may be. From EPWR. Have you read Ted Kaczynski's work? I think he's pretty spot on in his assessment of leftists, and we can hardly argue about the dangers of technology when it fosters communities like fur fags, bug chasers, and gender-fluid Tumblristas. Yep, I've said on one or two episodes that industrial society and its future was one of the rare holy shit moments that I've ever had in terms of my beliefs and how they affected my beliefs. So, big influence, and, people are like, hey, you're influenced by the Unabomber. Well, just read it yourself. Read it yourself. And judge it for what it is rather than who wrote it. Because I don't think that there's anything he was wrong about with regard to the psychology of leftism and leftists. Next question from Lamau. I think that's how you pronounce that. It's spelled with J's. It's odd. Anyway, hey, big fan, but a new one. I was the one on poll who called you the Millennial Peter Hitchens. Thank you. The semi-ironic meme of Hitchens as morality man was going around in British political threads for years, since he argues for authoritarian government when it comes to the worst of modern hedonism and argues for religion, but he makes sobs so he can say it in the mainstream. And we always wondered what he'd say if he knew his audience wouldn't shut themselves down if he said something too non-PC, whether he was hiding his power level or not. His show is better than anything I could have hoped for from Peter Hitchens, showing hidden power level, and have actually shaken up my perspective on the nature of humanity. I don't know how to explain it very precisely, but I don't have any illusions anymore about human beings being more than receptacles for memes, save what spark people have within them that makes them creatures with souls. One way to put it would be that you've opened my eyes fully to the second stage of the alternative or far-right red pill. The more common and easily explained race realism that undermines the tabula rasa mindset is pretty much omnipresent on poll, but there's lots of economically conservative cultural libertarians and edgelord pagan national socialist types who argue against the type of philosophy you espouse towards culture and argue for more materialistic hedonistic philosophy, being anti-Christian, and are basically racist SJWs, though that's perhaps too harsh, in the same way you describe libertine anti-SJWs as being more sane SJWs. Sorry for rambling incoherently for so long, but I have two broad questions I'd like to hear your take on. First, since you're a Christian and I am of like mind of its importance in society, I'd like to ask what you think Christianity would have to do to become an actual player in the battle for the hearts and minds of the masses once again. This is considering the additional political/cultural dimensions Christianity has in Europe, since it was tied up in both the identities of individual ethnicities and the civilization of Europe as Christendom. A secular America can maintain cohesion because the split is, for the most part, starkly racial. The cleavage between Europe and the other was, since post-Roman times, always religion. I have the singing feeling it's easier to wake Americans and Europeans up to racial divisions and materialistic hedonism than it is to the spiritual dimensions of civilization, which are near dead in cosmopolitan Europe. Well, same thing in America. Basically, my question is, what hope does Christianity have of being saved and Europeans saved with or by it, or vice versa, and how should we go about this? Do you think the genie's unleashed since the Reformation can be put back in the lamp? While I'm at it, I hope you don't mind, I'd like to ask in a broad way what your thoughts on political violence are. Honestly, even though I'm a middle-class guy in university, humanities plebe, sorry, and could go places if I put my back into it, I feel like long-term there isn't any hope for us to succeed in any of the currently existing institutions, be that the education indoctrination system or the government, beholden as they are to the self-reinforcing hedonistic selection methods. and would think some type of political violence would do more to rock society. In places like Rotherham or Malmo, there's a rot there that can't be sorted out without ultimately using extreme violence, and since it's unforthcoming from the official channels, I feel like some enterprising people ought to storm the Bastille, so to speak. It feels as if a lot of the power the current society has to keep down opposition is really just inertia, because it's relying on people to take the path of least resistance in the hopes of either personal success within the system or reform from easy methods that attack the system in ways it's vulnerable to, like the democratic process, which has so much pressure inherent in it to push it further left towards the Brave New World type society. One example of a seemingly hopeless act of terrorism is the 1916 Irish Easter Rising, where a few hundred militia took over some buildings in Dublin, and even though they were utterly defeated, brought about the conditions that led to the guerrilla war that led to Ireland breaking off from the UK. I think the social conditions are even more ripe for something similar today, considering Ireland was becoming culturally integrated into the British Empire, and the political concessions of most Irish wanted were only 2 years away. Today, the hard power of the governments of Europe is far smaller than it was back then, and rests on much shakier foundations. If 100 or 50 or even 24 men attacked a particularly enriched area and declared the official government illegitimate, would the army or police be able to put down the insurrection in a way that didn't end up inadvertently red-pilling the masses as to the existence of the conflicts that underpin modern social dysfunction? I don't think so. I'm interested in your opinion on the hypotheticality of serious political violence, given that the dichotomy, in particular far-right British political form I frequent, is between the route of infiltration via overtly blue pill parties like UKIP, or acting out via neo-Nazi-style street groups who are dedicated to action, despite doing little more than holding ineffectual parades that win next to no converts. The option of political violence isn't really discussed much, despite nearly everyone being in agreement that exercising violence to accomplish certain aims is part of the overall plan. What are your thoughts? Well, I don't want to provide any thoughts because I don't want to either alienate my audience that are of the same mindset as you, and I also don't want to get in trouble. So really all I'll say is this. You kind of answered your own question. You answered your first question in a way with the second question, and I don't want to say anything more than that. But don't let my short answer fool you into thinking that you asked bad questions or poorly written questions, because they're not. They're good questions, and I thank you for them. So, next. Nathaniel, 1914. Can you say a large-scale war occurring this century, and if so, between who and for what reason? Well, like I said earlier, I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's going to be between the world's superpowers. It's going to be some combination of Russia, China, and U.S. Israel. And if I'm wrong, well, I'm wrong. But again, I'm not particularly attached to the idea. It's not something I think about too much. It's from Anglo-Futurist. Has the left driven you to full fascism yet? I don't like to consider myself one, but other people call me that, so I'll go with it. It's from CERN Stormrunner. So we just had the big furry convention in town. I wanted to dress up like a big game hunter and stalk them for sport, but my friends told me I was being an asshole and that I should leave them alone. Sorry. The radio this morning was talking about one of the furries. He flew there from Britain. He works in a grocery and spent over $2,000 on one of 3 fursuits he wears. The radio guys were laughing at him, but then brought up how much cash the furry con brings to town. At what point is the money no longer good enough to get away with depravity? I've seen the shit St. Patrick's Day parades, the slut walks, Ferguson, etc. When the hell will enough be enough? When the culture stops valuing money and self-expression above all else? When people stop thinking that life is all about, again, getting the highest score and having the most fun and indulging your vices to the greatest extent that they can possibly be indulged? I think society structuring itself in a way that discourages social atomization would go a long way as well, because only a prolonged isolation could create an identity group like furries. Because I don't think that people who are properly socialized would think to themselves, gee, I'm going to act like an animal. I'm going to have a fursona. And by extension, I'm going to chop off my penis and change my name. These are things that can only happen in extreme isolation. These are expressions of anxieties that can only occur in extreme isolation. And I don't know when enough will be enough. I don't know what will make people draw the line and say, no fucking more. People will put up with anything as long as the money's good. Next from Han. Bit of a two-part question this week, but here it goes. Do you like Death Grips? And if so, what is your favorite song/songs? I like them, and I like The Money Store. That's a good album. Anything off of that. And I've had people tell me there's no such thing as black-on-black crime, and the only reason black people kill each other is because of not having opportunities like white people, and being within close proximity of each other. I'd like to believe this kind of thought process is self-defeating, and just making excuses for shitty behavior. What do you think about the whole situation with black people not being able to succeed due to being oppressed? Well, what is opportunity to the American? Opportunity is making money. And if money is really that hard to come by, guess what? You have EBT. And how hard is it to get that? Even if it's difficult, I can guarantee you it's not as difficult as killing somebody. People are this stupid that they think there's this white supremacist conspiracy theory to get black people to kill each other. If it were really an issue of money and opportunity, people would band together, combine what resources they have, and survive through that. Nobody gets it. How many people were killed because they lived in a shitty cardboard shack during the Great Depression? If it were lack of opportunity, everyone had a fucking lack of opportunity. Yet we're still here. We're descended from people who lived during that era. Everyone misses the fact that this is America. And no, I'm not calling it the land of opportunity. I'm calling it the land of nobody gives a fuck about anything, let alone each other. You have to create your own fucking opportunities. If child rapists, an international cabal of child rapists, can still make a living doing whatever the fuck they do, I'm certain that law-abiding black people can create something for themselves, and many have. How many black millionaires does America have compared to the rest of the world, due to the popularity of American sports? And even though this is the most extreme example of black people being successful in America, like I said, we live in America. Nobody gives a shit about anybody or anything. You have to go out and make people care. That's what sales is all about. Creating a want where there was none to begin with. Just like how Ronald Reagan invented crack and AIDS to oppress poor people of color and people of poop dick. The people who are all lack of opportunities, these are the same people who would have said that Ronald Reagan invented these things. So just keep that in mind.